Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, allow me to thank Secretary Concepcion, Joey Concepcion, for his invitation to share my thoughts on agriculture with you. The risk of being one of the last speakers in a conference is the risk of being repetitive. So I decided to do away with the first half of my presentation, but allow me to restate some points, especially for all of us who have been here since this morning. Point one, the focus today has been profitability of farmers. We are all one in the belief that farmers will not continue to produce food unless they make money from it. And this is so critical because overwhelmingly, ASEAN's 18% who remain poor are really concentrated in the agriculture sector. And that's about 100 million people in ASEAN. And it's very critical because also agriculture continues to be the main generator of employment in ASEAN economies. In the Philippines, about 24% of our people who are employed are in agriculture. In some parts of the Philippines, even higher. In Mindanao, that's 70%. In the Visayas, about 30%. Second point, we all heard that critical to profitability is producing in scale. Land consolidation and not fractured farm lots is key. Allow me to repeat that. Land consolidation and not fractured farm lots is key. We heard that from FELDA, from FELCRA. We even saw how Land Bank is now focused in that direction. Third point, that as we produce, we must be integrated not only into the Philippine value chain, but in the regional or the ASEAN value chain. That, in fact, is the thrust of the ASEAN Blueprint 2025. And that means more than just producing in scale, is ensuring we are connected to regional and global markets through our big brother corporate partners, many of you in the audience. Fourth point, science-based agriculture cannot be ignored, and fortunately is more possible now with digital handheld technology. Let me now just say a few things about credit and finance in agriculture, which I feel is the value chain component that needs to be cultivated, especially when the imperative is to produce food profitably, at a time of climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, the reality is credit and finance will not just flow to the sector without the correct ecosystem in place. In the Philippines, we are so decided on moving these funds to the agri-sector that we even have a law, Republic Act 10,000, which mandates that 25% of all banks' loanable funds be set aside for lending for the farm sector. Despite that, local banks pay more than $300 million annually in penalties for failing to lend to the farm sector. In that alone is an analysis to be made why banks would rather pay the penalties than lend to farmers. Until we can address minimizing risk in agriculture, especially in this time of climate change, we will not succeed in facilitating more funds from banks, NGOs, and microfinance institutions into farming. In the Philippines, part of those bank penalties I just mentioned are deposited with the Land Bank of the Philippines into an agricultural guarantee fund pool, which is used to support loans by small-scale farmers through the Rural Bank Network. This program, which started in 2008 with just 2 billion pesos, has now grown into more than 7 billion and guarantees as much as 16 billion pesos worth of credits and loans. This is a program that must be strengthened, expanded, and institutionalized. Another novel way to manage risks is the use of index-based agriculture insurance. In this insurance scheme, an external indicator like level of rainfall or wind speed will trigger a payment to farmers in a defined area, making it possible to pay thousands of small landholders rather than having an insurance adjuster deal with thousands of individual claims. Along the way, what the farmers are paid can immediately be used to save crops on farm investments. This is now being aggressively implemented in Africa, while in the Philippines, Pioneer and Bancassurance have begun to offer this to farmers, while the UNDP and the PCIC have launched successful trial programs in Mindanao. As you can see in the screen there, we all know how a plant, in this case a rice plant, a rice crop, is affected in its vegetative, reproductive, and ripening stage to temperature. Along the way, if there is an impact on the rice crop based on the wind pattern and on the rainfall, if there are damages, farmers are paid along the way. Another program which deserves strengthening includes something as traditional as warehouse receipts financing, or the trade of warehouse receipts, covering deposited crops under strict standards. But this time, through a digital registry capacitated to do online settlements and connected to lending institutions. Then secured transactions. Finally, small farm owners must be enabled to leverage their personal assets, equipment, receivables, inventories, and other movable properties under a secured transactions framework for farm financing. In countries like Vietnam and China, data showed how the system has been able to finance billions of farm-related activities by leveraging personal properties when we know that farmers have so little of real property. Most importantly, it cannot be overemphasized that these four schemes' penetration, affordability, and effectiveness will be greatly enhanced by telecommunications and digital connectivity. Running these systems on encrypted digital registries will ensure transparency, convenience, and velocity of trade at a time of enabled handheld devices, connecting buyers to sellers, allowing online price discovery and settlement, selling insurance products online, accessing training and weather information on a handheld device, all works to drop costs and allow agriculture to be profitable. Ladies and gentlemen, let me end by saying that if ASEAN is to remain relevant and to survive for another 50 years, focusing on agri-entrepreneurship through innovation, connectivity, and credit will ensure that prosperity for all will not only be a trendy hashtag, but an ideal that can be born into fruition. Thank you very much.